friend, and welcome to Mom Babes, where every mom is a babe, and that means you're a babe. And if you're like, Christina, I don't feel like a babe. I literally tried on 12 different outfits this morning and nothing is working, nothing is okay, then this channel is especially for you. I make videos for moms who are creatives, which is also you. And if you're like, I'm not a creative, that's a lie, because raising a live human being is the most creative thing that there is. I would love it if you guys would subscribe and ding the bell to get notified each time I release a new video. I put them out every Thursday, and I just love having you here. I love hanging out with you here. So it takes 2 seconds, go ahead and do that so we can be friends. Today we are talking about something that I am so passionate about. I've been thinking about how to make this video for a very long time because I wanted to make it really comprehensive and really helpful for you. And that is how to breastfeed a newborn, especially when you want to quit. Underline the especially when you want to quit part. There can be a variety of issues that you will have while you're breastfeeding, while you're learning to breastfeed. So I've put chapters in this video on purpose because I know not everyone is going to deal with the same stuff. So go ahead and look at the chapters at the bottom of the video and skip to the part that's going to be most helpful for you. I'm gonna go through my backstory and the things that were helpful for me, and then some other challenges I encountered along the way. I've been breastfeeding. I've breastfed 2 babies now, one for 18 months and one for 15 months, which is like 32 months, which is almost like, what's that, 2.5 years? So I kind of have a little bit of experience breastfeeding, and enough to where I feel like I can really actually help you. Like, my goal is to help you. I wanna say I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that this is such a struggle. I remember sitting there so vividly. It starts with, I have to feed my baby, which immediately produces like so much anxiety and so much resistance and so much dread. You're like, I don't want to feed the baby, because every time I put the baby on, I am so sore and bleeding and calloused, and it's so painful that I literally sit there, tears stream down my face while I'm feeding my baby. And then I also had the issue where my baby's not eating enough and isn't latching properly. And so my baby's getting smaller and smaller. So not only is it your body in the physical part of recovering from postpartum, being super sore, and dealing with not being able to walk if you had a really rough delivery like I did the first time, dealing with all of that, kind of being bedridden. And on top of that, the emotional stress of feeling inadequate as a mom because you, for whatever reason, can't feed your kid. And it seems like everybody else does this simply, but you can't feed your kid, and that's so hard to walk through. You know, put on your app to do the timing for how long you're gonna feed them, which I had to do at the beginning, also another thing. And if any of you guys have to go in for the weight checks, oh my gosh, those are so stressful, to go into the doctor. And I remember just dreading it every time and not wanting to go because I knew the baby didn't gain enough weight, and then I get lectured about how I'm not a good mom again. So I so feel you. It was 90 days, you guys. For 90 days with my first kid, I wanted to quit. Every single day, 12 times a day, I wanted to quit. So part of my purpose in this video is you can do this. There is someone that has pioneered this trail before. I know every single time, 8 times a day, 10 times a day, 12 times a day, all night that you're feeding this baby, you want to quit every single time. And so this is how I kind of got through that mentally, was to say, just one more feeding, just one more feeding, just one more feeding, just one more day, just one more feeding, just one more day. And I'm gonna give you some more tips and tricks to apply as well that are actually gonna be physically helpful. I know what you're thinking. You're in that place where you're like, this cannot be like how we're designed to feed our kids. This can't be the way, because it's awful and it's miserable and it's painful and it's so good for your kids. Why is something that is so good for your kids so impossible to do? And I've been there with the crying and the pain and the ointments and everything. By the way, if you have never struggled with breastfeeding, thank your ever-loving stars, because that is not normal. Mostly, I want to normalize how hard this is. This is not easy. It is so hard. It's so difficult. But like all things that are worth pursuing in life that are difficult, it is the most rewarding. Why should we breastfeed our kids? I want to give you a little motivation so that you can remember this every time you go to sit down, feed the baby. This is what you need to think about too, is it's not just feeding your baby in the moment for the calories today. Breastfeeding is giving them everything that they need for their life. It is the best start for them so that they have less food sensitivities, less allergies, all of the antibodies and things that we don't even know that breast milk contains that is targeted towards your baby. it is so good. So it's not just a gift for them in the now, they're feeding now. It's more like a lifetime. Like this is the start of your lifetime. This is a gift for you. I always think about how God is so cool too, because if you have a mom that's, you know, in a poverty situation where she can't afford to buy formula or something, God made it so that our bodies produce milk for our babies. Someone who doesn't have any money can still breastfeed their baby so their baby still gets the best start in life. And I've always just thought that was so cool, that breastfeeding is something that is accessible to all moms if you work at it. And I do want to emphasize that this is work. It is hard. I hear you. It is hard, but it is so worth all the work that you are going to put in to get to a happy breastfeeding place, which is also possible. You need to get rid of this mindset that I can't do this. It's too hard. You can do this. You can do this. And if you're tired again in 2 hours and you're like, I can't do this, watch this video again and I will tell you, you can do this. You were made to breastfeed. It is possible for you. It's not just for other people. You can do this, and we can find a way to make it doable for you and your baby. First, I'm going to give you a crash course in basic breastfeeding. And if you already know kind of the basics and you want to target what is more difficult, you can skip to the chapters ahead in the video. So it's about to get real awkward in here because I'm going to bring in my prop. So basically what you want to do when you're feeding your baby is you always want to hold your baby, like if your baby's in this arm, head here on your hand, and you want to bring your baby to you. The caveat to this, my first one, I kind of like came in a little more because he had difficulty because of his tongue tie getting a good latch. So, and the lactation consultant told me, hey, if it's working, it's fine. But proper procedure is you have your baby here and you bring your baby to you. You don't lean over to your baby. Also, I think for the first one, I was having a hard time holding him and I always had to have a pillow for support. So go ahead and get a pillow out, as many pillows as you need, or like the boppies, stack the boppies if they're really little, whatever you need, so that you have the support and baby is here and you bring baby to the breast. What you want to do with your breast is you kind of want to cup it like a C. So you'll cup it like this, and then bring baby to the breast. And then what you want to do is insert the nipple towards the top of the mouth, because the further up you insert it, it's like eating a sandwich. So you do the C, and then you kind of squish your boob like a sandwich. And then if you'll see here, instead of just doing like, sorry, it's gonna be so awkward. I'm gonna do a sideways view so you can see. So if you try to latch on or like just shove your baby on straight on the nipple, it'll look something like this. You'll see that it's not that deep. What you want to do is kind of aim the nipple towards the top of the mouth, like you're eating a burger. Like think about how you're biting a sandwich, and if you go up and in, you can actually get more of the sandwich into your mouth. And so that's what we want to do. We want to shove that breast in as far as we can because you want a really deep latch. That's how you're going to be not as sore, especially if you do have shallower nipples. This will help it not hurt as much. So what you'll do is like kind of squish it down and then watch as you put it in like, if you put it in, like I said, super awkward, more towards the top, you actually get a deeper latch. And so that's what you want to think. You want to think C, and then you want to think like putting it in. And it does take a lot of work because in the meantime, your newborn's like doing this, like trying to latch on. So you're like, stop moving, but also like trying to get it in and do the proper latch. And I remember just kind of like aggressively like shoving the baby on my breast because that was the only way that a proper latch was going to happen. So just know you can use a little guidance and quite a bit of pressure to help them get into the right spot. You don't have to be scared. I mean, you don't want to be too aggressive, and you'll be much more grateful that you have a deeper latch because that's where most of the soreness comes from. And then when they're actually drinking, you want them to be, I don't know, we should have a water bottle or something. Hold on. Notice that you don't want your baby to nurse like this, like chomping. You want them to like pull out the milk, so you want them to drink. What I'm trying to show you is that my jaw is moving up and down, but I'm not, like I'm sucking, I'm not chomping, because the chomping is also going to create a lot of pain. And I had little like gum mark circles, like half circles where the baby was chomping because that was how the baby was deciding to get the milk out. Super painful. I guess kind of effective for eating, but they're actually going to get more if you do the proper latch. And so you always want to get a good latch. If they don't latch good the first time, pull them off right away, especially when they're newborns is when it's easiest to teach them. It's okay, even if you haven't taught them yet and they're like 3 months old, like mine was, and you're still working on a good latch, you still make them do it every time. And the best way to break the latch when it's not proper is to just pull up their lip like Elvis, just go like this, and then they'll break the latch, pull them off, and then try to put them back on. Really, really, really prioritize having a good latch before you feed the baby, because then the baby's more motivated to latch properly because they know, okay, this is what it's supposed to feel like. Now I can start eating. So if you keep pulling them off when they're not properly latched, that'll help instill that in their brain, even at this little age. They're so amazing how much they can learn. Some exercises, if your baby's not opening their mouth fully, because part of the deep latch is they have to have an open mouth, but if they're like trying to latch like this, not helpful. So one of the exercises I did is that you go, I love you, and like on your baby, just be like, hey baby, and be like, I love you, because what you're doing is you're putting, okay, when they have the sensation on their nose, pulling their lip down and open. I love you. You can start on their nose with your nipple, and that will trigger, oh, I need to open my mouth, so that they have a big mouth. You have the C, you have the deep sandwich, and you put the baby on there, and that's how you want the deep latch. The other thing you can try is to alternate which breast that you start feeding the baby on. Typically, in my experience, babies have like a favorite breast, but you still, you know, want to put them on alternating ones. And you can do like a hair tie thing where you switch them, or you can have an app where you keep track, or sometimes it's really obvious. You're like, yep, we're on the left side today. So depending on where your supply is. And so you do want to make sure that you are alternating. You're trying to keep an even amount of production in both. It's not always perfect, but that's the goal. You also want to try to make sure that you are emptying the full breast. You want to, and that's going to keep your production up too, is if you empty one side and then go and empty the other side. That's kind of the goal, so that your body knows to refill it. You want to make sure that your baby is hungry so that they do the full feed, and that's why you want to empty and empty versus them eating like a tiny little bit and falling asleep, and a tiny little bit and falling asleep. You don't want to do that. You want to keep your baby awake long enough to do a full feeding. At least 5 minutes is typically a full feeding, and then, you know, make them wait. You know, if they want to feed it 5 minutes from then, you're like, no, we're going to wait at least 30 minutes. So I'd say when they're a newborn, you want to wait at least 30 minutes. I mean, if you can wait an hour, they say, you know, baby-led feeding, so you want to kind of go based off what your baby's doing. But when they're crying, they don't always want to be fed. Sometimes they have gas, sometimes they have a poopy diaper. They are crying for a variety of things, so it is a little bit of trying to figure that out. But if they are just nibbling a little bit and falling asleep, you really want to break that habit. If it's the only way you can do it right now, that is fine. But if you really want to set yourself up for success, you want to make sure they're awake enough to do the full feeding. And if you have to, you know, take out, like get them down to their diaper so that they actually do a full feeding. And then they will hopefully, you know, because it's what you feed them, then they're awake, and then they sleep. You want to try to not do the feed the baby to fall asleep. I think everybody does that. Dude, I totally did that a bunch of times. Because you're like, I know I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm so desperate for sleep. We're just going to feed you till you fall asleep. So whatever you decide is working for you. But the ideal is that you feed them a good full meal, because the most dense milk is going to be at the back of the breast. So if you do the full feeding, the beginning of the milk is really hydrating and more watery, and the back is where it's a little more filling. So if they do get the full feeding, then they're a little fuller, and then you can have the longer time of them being awake, and then hopefully just being able to rock them to sleep. But like I said, I cheated too and totally did the feed the baby till they fall asleep thing, even though you're not supposed to. No judgment, dude. Whatever works for you, however you can get the breast milk into the baby. Even if the baby really doesn't latch and you have to pump to do the bottle, that's so hard. And I remember just feeling like a cow and like, I am only my milk, and like less than an animal, less than a person. So, but whatever you have to do to get the breast milk into the baby ultimately is the goal. So however that works for you, however you have to do it, you are a creative, capable mom, and you will find a way to get that good stuff into the baby. While you are at the hospital, if there is any kind of lactation specialist service, do it. Even if you've breastfed a kid before, do it. Because the thing about breastfeeding is, even though you're a professional, I felt this because after my first kid, I was like, with my second one, this will be no problem. But not every kid is good at breastfeeding. Some babies are just really, really bad at breastfeeding. And so you really have to do the extra work with them to get them to latch properly, to get them to feed. So it's not always you. Sometimes it's them, and they just need a lot of support and a lot of assistance. So every single time, I recommend that you get a lactation consultant and that you have them check for a tongue tie. Even if you think there isn't one, always have them check. and make sure that everything is good with the baby and their positioning and everything before you leave the hospital. For my first, I had to visit 3, not 1, but 3 different lactation consultants until they finally identified that my first had a tongue tie. It was a minor one, but it was enough to where it was bothering his latch. And so once we got that released, then everything progressed properly. The lactation consultant is good too because they will target for you what your specific issues are and really support you. They're trained to support you in how to do this. And if you don't like the one at your hospital, or like me, you have a newborn and the one that is provided by your health insurance is an hour away, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna drive an hour with a newborn, go do this lactation thing and drive an hour home. That's really doable. What you can do is there are private practices. I think I paid out of pocket like $100 to go see someone local in my community, which you might be like $100 is a lot, but $100 to be able to feed your kid, and that's money that would go like that if you're spending it on formula. So it's a worthy investment. If you're not content with the lactation consultant that you do have through your insurance, or if you don't have insurance, it is sometimes worth it to shop around to find a good one in your community. And like I said, they will come beside you to support you in your specific journey, what you need. I'm going to give you some broad techniques and how-tos. I'm not a lactation consultant. I'm just a mom who's breastfed for 2.5 years and teaching you what worked for me. And I had just such a big challenge. So I want to come alongside you and give you my tips and tools to show you how I made this possible for myself. And that's probably the crux of why you would come to this video, is you know what you're supposed to do, but it's just not working. My first experience. So if you are underproducing, this is what you do. My first, like I said, super underweight, like in the 1 percentile, was going in for the weight checks. He was in the 1 percentile until he was 3 months old. So I spent 90 days really trying to breastfeed him, crying all the time, being super emotionally drained, and just feeling like a terrible mom in general. I remember dreading breastfeeding every single time and having to time the feeds because he wasn't gaining weight and going in for the weight checks. It is the worst. I get it. It is awful. If you have to supplement with formula, then supplement, no judgment. I totally understand. I still think whatever breast milk you can do, it's there for the antibodies. It's there for, resistance to allergies and cancers and other things in the future. It is such a gift to your baby. If you can't exclusively breastfeed, at least breastfeed a little bit. But this is how you can get your production up and going more so that you can exclusively breastfeed. I tried eating a variety of things. Yes, you need to be hydrated. That's important. I tried all the lactation things that you're supposed to eat. To be honest, guys, the only thing that actually matters as far as your production is the demand that you put on your milk. The demand that you put on your milk production is how much you're going to produce. You can eat whatever in the world you want, but if you're not putting your demand on there, it doesn't matter. So you don't have to go on some special diet. Yes, there are things that'll make your milk more nutritious. Obviously, just eating a healthy diet in general is the best thing for having the best milk. But really, the only thing that actually matters is the demand. So if you are having a hard time producing, you got to pull out the pump. So the pump, for some people, they love it and some people hate it. So at the beginning, when you're really sore, you like it because it's a break from the baby. At least that's how I felt. You want to find a pump that actually fits you. I had to order a different size because my original one didn't fit me. You want to make sure that you have a comfortable pump, so because you're going to be using it a lot. I also, the Amita Maya, I think is the brand, was portable, and so I could take it on date night and just go in the bathroom and pump, and it was battery powered. So, and that's nice too, because then you don't have to be next to the wall. You can kind of pump on the couch or whatever, especially if you're going to be pumping often. I highly recommend something like that. It was literally this big, like the pump was this big, and then it had the tubes, and then that was it. I know you can, for working too, get a special pump. Anyways, find a good pump. Totally worth the investment. A lot of hospitals, your insurance will cover a free pump. So always ask about that too if you don't already have one. Make sure it's comfortable. The demand. So after your baby, so in the morning you wake up and you have probably the most production that you'll have for the whole day because hopefully you got to sleep. I remember those nights though where I didn't get to sleep so much. Hopefully you got to sleep so you're really full in the morning. So what you want to try to do, what the goal is, you may not be here yet, and that's okay. Don't judge yourself. You want to get baby full on one breast so that you can pump the other one, especially if you're trying to get a milk supply, if you are trying to go back to work or save up bottles for date nights or time away so that hubby can feed the baby, etc. With my first, I barely, like, it was like gold. We didn't get away from the baby that much because I wasn't producing enough to have that stash. So we're trying to get you that stash so it creates flexibility. Even if you can't create the stash, at least you want to bare minimum feed the baby, right? So pumping. The thing that helped me most was to power pump. Power pump is when you will take an hour in the morning typically, and you will pump both at the same time. It does make a difference if you pump one at a time or both. You're gonna pump both at the same time, and you're gonna do 10 minutes on. And I mean, it doesn't have to be a super strong whatever, and then 10 minutes off, 10 minutes on, 10 minutes off, and you'll do that for an hour. This is at the beginning. You don't, once your production is where you want it to be, you don't want to do this because it'll make you produce more. But once this gets you enough production, you'll do it until you get to that point. And this is the key. You are doing this to put a demand on your milk. You're not doing this to actually produce milk at the beginning. So you're gonna be sitting there for 10 minutes, like literally I pumped like this much in those 10 minutes, take a break, do another 10 minutes. And what it's doing is it's mimicking newborn feedings because they're small and they're often and like a cluster feed. And so it's mimicking a cluster feed. And so your body's gonna go, oh, we need to feed this baby. So the keys are you have to do both. You have to do both, and you have to do 10 on, 10 off at the beginning. Or the other thing I did too was I would do both, and I would just do 30 minutes, which sounds like a lot, but you only have to do that for like a week or so, and your body will really start producing after that. So almost be careful because then the milk will come in. Have to do both, have to do, I would say if you can't do the full hour power pump, at least do 30 minutes, but put the demand on there, just pump. And at the beginning, you're not going to get anything and you're going to feel like it's a waste of time, but eventually you'll be like, oh, okay, and your body, it takes time, but it will catch up. And that is the best way to get your production up, is to put a demand on it. No weird foods, no special diet, just get the pump on there, get the baby on there. And especially if you are really sore, using the pump is going to help make you feel a little comfortable until you get to the place where your baby is doing the deeper, better latch. If you have sore nipples, that's part of it. So there is a difference though. There's a difference between, I'm a little sore, like maybe a little bit of scabbing, callus, to where like, oh my gosh, this is excruciating. I literally I just remember like putting the baby on and like just crying every single time, like just tears because it hurt so bad. So we need to improve the latch. But in the meantime, something that really helped me, you can get nipple cups that kind of protect, because they're like raw and building up that callus for the baby. It protects them from like your bras and your shirts and from rubbing. So nipple cups, super, super helpful. Nipple butter is super, super helpful. I opt for an organic one because even if you wash it off before you feed the baby, which you don't want to wash before you feed anyway, your baby's gonna be eating it. So you at least want the best ingredients possible if that's an option. Sometimes it's not even that much more expensive. So always check for an organic option. The second lactation consultant that I went to put me on nipple shields. I do not recommend nipple shields. Maybe for other cases they would work fine. So what a nipple shield is it's basically like a Madonna nipple, basically like just like a silicone. It's kind of harder. And so that's what you would put on to help your baby get like latched on. The problem with that is, at least for my baby, they had a hard time extracting anyway. And then the nipple shield, instead of being an assistance to me to keep me from getting sore, was actually a deterrent, and they weren't getting as much milk. So I would literally feed the baby for 45 minutes on the nipple shield so that the baby would get enough. That is not a normal amount of time to breastfeed. 45 minutes is way too long. You should be like 10, 15, even 20 minutes I feel like is too long. If your baby's properly eating, you shouldn't need to nurse that long. So that was my complaint about the nipple shields. If you're really dying and it's so painful and it's the only way and your baby seems to have a good latch with the shield on, then maybe that would be helpful for you. But I found the best way to get the breastfeeding machine going is to get the baby on the breast, properly latched as often as possible. And that's going to be your biggest helper. Once you pump to get your production up, like I said, you got to do both sides. You got to do it even if you're not producing in your body. It will get there. And then that's going to help too, because then your baby can latch better when you actually have a fuller breast that has milk and then they're getting what they need. What do I do about engorgement? So my second one, complete opposite of my first. My first was awful, had the mini tongue tie, couldn't latch, underproducing, skinny, small baby, super stressful, awful, awful, awful. My second ate real well. Like he was like a Michelin tire baby, like chunky and happy, which is awesome. And emotionally, it's a much better feeling because then every time your baby cries, you're not thinking, oh, they're hungry. Oh, I'm a bad mom. Oh, I have to feed them. I don't want to feed them. But you're like, okay, you know, they can cry for 10 seconds. They got plenty extra. They're good. So emotionally, that was so much better and so much easier. And then the doctor's like, your baby's gaining weight fine. So then you're not getting the lectures and the stress from them as well. So, that is the better of the option. The thing that you do deal with though, when you are producing a lot because you have a baby that eats a lot, is you will get some engorgement, especially at the beginning. I didn't know this, guys, because I went from one opposite, like couldn't produce enough, to like the other opposite of like, I'm producing too much. I didn't know that engorgement was so awful and so painful. I don't even know how you like would describe it to someone that's never experienced it before. Like, I don't know, imagine if your hands just like kept filling with fluid until you felt like your skin was gonna burst and you couldn't even like bend them because it hurts so bad. Like, oh, it's so painful. So my engorgement, just to give you a frame of reference, lasted 6 weeks. 6 weeks of just feeling so full and so like your skin was gonna rip, like everything was gonna pop, and you're just miserable. You can't really like walk properly because it hurts. You don't want to move that much. Like it just is so painful. And so what you can do that is a bad idea is you can pump a little. So this is how I felt. I felt like after I fed the baby was what was normal for like my breast to be at, and then I would just hate that feeling after feeding the baby of the milk coming in and just being too much and being so full and just wanting to cry about it because it hurts so bad. And emotionally it weighed on me because it was so painful and it's a constant thing. So I don't recommend pumping if you can just hold out. This is eventually what helped me. You want to get a good fitting bra. So one that, especially, I mean, hopefully you're not trying to work out in the first 6 weeks wearing sports bras anyway, but you want to get something that is supportive, like a good breastfeeding bra. Soma has a great breastfeeding bra. It's so comfy and like the most supportive, best one that, not endorsed, it was just like a really good breastfeeding bra, really supportive. So you want to get something that supports you and feels really good. And then you want to make sure to wear that instead of like a sleeper type bra or a lounging type bra. You want to get something that has support but isn't restrictive. Like a sports bra kind of pushes you down and cuts off, and that's gonna give you more block ducts, which are a whole other thing. I might do a whole video on block ducts because there's such a thing and I really, really hate and struggled with them chronically. Like, we'll do a whole video because it's like too much. But you want to make sure you have support, and then just don't, like I said, it's the opposite of what it was before. So your body responds to the demand that's put there. So your baby's eating, and then when they're done eating, you're going to stop feeding them. But then if you're still full, what that does is it sends a signal to your body like, hey, we don't need to produce as much. And so if you're pumping on top of that, your body thinks, oh, well, we still need to produce a little more. And so you just need to stop and like kind of deal with the pain. You can express a little bit. You can take hot showers, hot baths. I didn't think any of that was helpful. Really, the one thing, it's so simple, was just to stop. And eventually, after 6 weeks, I mean, maybe there's a better way. Maybe it was just my body, but you will start to produce less. If you just like can't handle it and it's so painful and you're like, I cannot bear to be in this much pain for this long, then you can pump a little bit, but you want to make it just enough to get a little relief. If you do more, then your body's going to produce more. Like if you're trying to increase your production, which you are not trying to increase your production. I remember during that time, the one thing, it was like, I just remember being so sad. I mean, you're hormonal and postpartum and sleep deprived and kind of crazy anyway. But I remember looking forward to, I would take a hot bath every single night. And I just remember that was the highlight of my day. And I could not wait to get into like my sitz bath or my hot bath and just sit there and get some kind of physical comfort because it was so awful. What I'm trying to say, I'm not trying to scare you. What I'm trying to say is like, if that's you, I've been there too. It's going to be okay. Just try to limit what your body is producing because that is the main thing that's going to help you even out. And then once you even out, oh my gosh, So much relief and so much better. And then you really get into a good routine with your baby because your body will produce what they need. If at any point you are having to adjust production because, oh, all of a sudden my baby's eating more, like I said, if you want to increase your production, what you will do is put the demand there until it increases. It will increase even if you're not actually getting any out. If you do it enough and on both, you will increase your production. And then when you want to decrease your production, stop. Don't do it. Wear something comfortable and just kind of be uncomfortable for a second, as much as you can handle. Guys, I wanted to quit every day, 10 times a day for 90 days. So there is a little bit of stick-to-itiveness to this where you have to want it. You have to know that it's the best for your baby. You have to be motivated. I never did any formula. I never supplemented because I knew myself, and I knew if I did, I would become dependent on that because breastfeeding was so miserable and so awful. I was going to become dependent on that. So I opted to not do any formula because I knew that I needed to get my body to do this. I wanted to exclusively breastfeed. If you do the formula, like I said, do as much as you can breastfeeding. Breastfeed your baby as often as you can, as much as you can. Doctors say 6 months. Gold standard, I think, is a year. And pretty much as long as you can tolerate. I mean, like in old times, people used to breastfeed their babies until like 3, and that was like very, very normal. Now, I'd say like most of the people that I know, it's usually like 6 months to a year that you're breastfeeding. But as long as you can do it, keep going, keep going, keep going. You can do this. 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 Yes, it's hard. I know it's so hard. Like I said, it was so difficult for me. But you can do this. Side note, something that I thought was really fun during the night feedings, because you're delirious and like gonna fall asleep on your baby while you're breastfeeding them, is I would pull up on my phone, like, what is it called? Like Planet Earth, National Geographic. So I would just watch like animals, and I thought that was something that was good to watch because it's like, you know, you don't really have to follow it that much, like, because there's not really a story or a plot. There's just, you know, you observing animals. And it was peaceful, and it was like, aw, like the mommy lion with the baby lion, like mother-child bonding, which I thought was cute. So it was something that was visually like entertaining to watch, but not so much that you had to be fully awake and invested in like, wait, what's this character doing again? What happened? Because there's not a plot. So if you're looking for something that, you know, in the middle of the night that you want to stay awake for the feeding, then that was my thing that really helped me out. Hopefully that was helpful for you. Hopefully you got something really good out of that, that's going to help you on your journey. I so want you to breastfeed. Breastfeeding is for you. I really feel like you can do this. If you have any tips or any story or any kind of information to help other moms in our community, please comment and say things that worked for you, things that you liked. If you have any questions about it that I didn't address, I may know the answer. If I do, I can respond to your comment, so just let me know. Mostly, I want to encourage you that you can do this, and when you feel like you can't, watch this video again because you can do this. And if no one has told you yet today, you are doing a good job. You are a good mom. And especially around this feeding your baby type thing, I feel like there is a lot of mom guilt, but I want to reassure you, you are a good mom. You just brought this amazing life into the world that is specifically for you. And I know that right now you're like, I don't care, like I'm exhausted. Like I remember feeling like I don't want to be in the moment. It's too much work to try to be in the moment. Like you're just trying to survive. What you can look forward to is sleep training though. I will link to my sleep training video because that will get you excited for when you will sleep again. Sleep is so important to me, and so if you need help with that, I will let you know how I did that as well. Thank you for hanging out with me. I especially watching the video to the end, that's super nice. And I hope that we can hang out again and be friends, and yeah. Bye guys. Thanks for watching, Mom Babes.